Baseball cards are stored in shoeboxes and displayed in museums. They're lost to your childhood friends in games of flipping and damaged against the spokes on your bike. Whether you're riding the thrill of pulling your next unique card out of a pack or saving up money to complete your set, baseball cards connect generations of players and serve as cherished pieces of Americana. During the Enlightenment era, trust in the established politico-economic institutions of feudalism deteriorated, and a new social class emerged, the bourgeoisie. This emergent class advertised their business or trade through cards. By the late 17th century, these cards had become ubiquitous. In Paris and London, these cards were the means by which the middle class maintained their hierarchy in the social order. Early cards were similar to business cards today, and would have only the business owner's name and address. Because streets did not have numbers, these cards often had maps on the back to direct the public to the merchant's store. As printing technology improved with the invention of engraving and lithography, artwork became popular. This middle-class practice, as is often the case throughout history, was originally derived from an aristocratic tradition. In the early 17th century, French noblemen began the practice of leaving visiting cards as a sign of etiquette when visiting another's home. In 1839, Louis Daguerre invented the eponymous daguerreotype. This primitive form of photography was met with immediate and widespread popularity. However, it was expensive, and producing multiple copies proved difficult. In 1851, Louis Dodereau invented the carte de visite. This new form of daguerreotype photography enabled mass production of multiple prints at a lower cost. Despite Dodereau's innovation, it would not become popular until 1859, when André Desderies published photographs of Napoleon III in this format. It was met with newfound popularity and success. Portrait photography was suddenly affordable for the petty bourgeois, ushering a period called cardomania. It even became an early manifestation of social media. They were cheaper and more durable than daguerreotypes, and were small enough to be placed into envelopes. They were traded and given to friends, family, and anyone you came across. People collected carte de visites of their famous actors of the day, such as John Wilkes Booth, and they served as a platform to raise awareness of pressing social issues, such as slavery. The nascent sport of baseball underwent significant developments throughout the 1840s, culminating in the establishment of the National Association of Baseball Players in 1857. Despite being an amateur organization, the NABBP still had scheduled games and championship tournaments. Among these early clubs, the Brooklyn Atlantics emerged as baseball's first dynasty. They won the championship in 1857, 59, 60, 61, 64, and finally 1865. To commemorate the 1865 season, the team commissioned a carte de visite of the team. They distributed these cards to fans and opposing teams. They were the first baseball team invited to the White House and even gave their card to President Johnson. This card is considered to be the very first baseball card. In 1863, the first individual player card was produced in order to promote a cricket and baseball match held in Hoboken. The card is of Harry Wright, a Hall of Famer. The first card set would be the Union of Lansingburgh, another amateur team in the NABBP. 3 players on the team, Bill Craver, Mike McAtee, and Stephen King, were notorious for fixing matches. Craver would be expelled from several teams for match fixing and gambling. He would go on to play in the National League, where he was a part of the infamous 1877 Louisville Grays match-fixing scandal, alongside George Hall, Al Nichols, and star pitcher Jim Devlin. Andrew Peck grew up in an orphanage after his mother died when he was 5. He worked for a few different general stores before joining the Eagle Baseball Club of New York. The team played on the famous Elysian Fields, where baseball was born. While playing for the club, he met Henry Chadwick, a sports writer, historian, and statistician. The two would become lifelong friends. After serving with the Union Army for the duration of the Civil War, Peck mustered out and began to sell baseball equipment as a street vendor. He soon went into business with Walter Irving Snyder, forming Peck and Snyder Baseball and Sportsman Emporium. They sold some of the first canvas tennis shoes and invented the baggy cap cricketers wear today. In 1868, they began to produce baseball cards. On the front was a team photo of the Cincinnati Red Stockings, and on the back was an advertisement for their business. In 1886, Goodwin Tobacco, owner of both Old Judge and Gypsy Queen cigarettes, began to produce baseball cards. This 12-player set, known as N167, features players from the New York Giants. Just a couple years later, success of the card set would prompt Goodwin to produce the N172 set, comprised of over 500 different players with over 3,000 variations. At the same time, another popular cigarette company, Allen & Ginter, produced the N28 set, a colorful set of lithographic cards. In 1888, Goodwin produced the N162 set, featuring 8 baseball players, as well as boxers, jockeys, billiards players, and the very first football card of the captain of the Yale University football team. In 1890, Goodwin, Allen & Ginter, as well as several other major cigarette brands, merged to form the American Tobacco Company. Most cigarette companies halted production on baseball cards as the lack of competition meant that they did not need to advertise. Cards from the late 19th century are still plentiful, with thousands being graded by PSA and hundreds of listings online. However, these cards were produced as photographs mounted to cardstock. Sepia-toned photographs fade over time. Additionally, many of these cards were glued into scrapbooks, which when removed can cause the backs to tear. Many of these cards are rebacked, significantly reducing their value as they are now considered altered. In 1890, the same year that the American Tobacco Company formed, the U.S. Congress passed the Sherman Antitrust Act. This federal statute prohibits corporate trusts from limiting or monopolizing interstate commerce. Violating the act constitutes a felony, and this legislation empowers the Department of Justice to bring suits to enjoin conduct violating the act. In 1911, over 20 years after passing the act, the Supreme Court ordered the American Tobacco Company to dissolve. That same day, the court also ordered the dissolution of the Standard Oil Company. 2 years prior, amidst ongoing litigation, the American Tobacco Company began to produce the T206 set, also known as the white bordered set. This set contains over 524 cards, with over 6,000 combined front and back variations, each portraying a different cigarette brand under the American Tobacco umbrella. The Honus Wagner card from this set had a very limited run. Wagner was either not compensated to his liking, or didn't want his name to be associated with tobacco companies, as cards were beginning to be collected by children. Either way, the Honus Wagner T206 is exceedingly rare, with an estimated 50 to 75 copies believed to exist. It is currently the second most valuable card of all time, selling at auction for $6.6 million. Two other notable card sets from this era are the E90-91 American Caramel cards from 1909 and the E145 Cracker Jack cards from 1914. The onset of World War I precipitated a slowdown in tobacco production as resources were diverted overseas. Card production ceased, but other industries, including candy and retail stores, filled the gap. In the wake of the 1929 stock market crash and ensuing Great Depression, the landscape of baseball card collecting changed. Attendance at games dwindled, as did the popularity of baseball. Card companies compensated by including a stick of gum inside a pack of cards in order to entice card buying. In 1933, Goudy Gum produced a popular set that included 240 different cards in full-color portraits. The set included Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Jimmy Fox, and many other stars. It even had retired stars such as Tris Speaker and Eddie Collins. Each card was numbered on the back. Astute collectors of the day noticed that number 106 was missing from the set and wrote in to complain. The card was produced but never distributed. Number 106 turned out to be Hall of Famer Napoleon Lajoie. Those who wrote into the company to inquire about number 106 were mailed back a copy of the card. But the card was otherwise never distributed, making it one of the rarest baseball cards ever produced. Fewer than 100 cards have ever been submitted to PSA for grading. The following year, Goudy produced a smaller set of 96 cards. It features a rookie Hank Greenberg, but confusingly, no Babe Ruth cards. In 1939, Jefferson Burdick published the United States Card Collector's Catalog, one of the first reference books for American trading cards. He established the first system for cataloging cards, with each set being prescribed a number and a letter denoting where each set originated. 19th century tobacco cards are represented by the letter N, such as the Old Judge N167 set, while T is 20th century tobacco cards, such as the T206. Trading cards were distributed with food, gum, magazines, and more. Burdick's card classification system revolutionized the hobby and is still used by collectors today. Beyond his contributions to the hobby, his legacy endures through his generous donation of his entire card collection to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The 306,000 card collection is second only to the Baseball Hall of Fame Museum in terms of public collections. Card production ceased in 1941 when America entered World War II and the country redirected vital resources to the war effort. Leading card companies such as Gowdy, Play Ball, and Double Play all discontinued production as gum and paper were rationed. As the nation returned to normalcy after the end of the war, many companies began production again. Gum Inc., which had previously made the Play Ball cards, produced a new set in 1948 under the Bowman brand name. It featured Stan Musial, Yogi Berra, and Warren Spahn rookie cards, albeit in stark black and white. The first color set after World War II was the 1948 Leaf cards, which contained rookie cards of Satchel Paige and Jackie Robinson, the latter of whom broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball. Despite criticisms over print quality and color accuracy, the Leaf Jackie Robinson card remains a prized possession in many collectors' portfolios. Bowman would raise the bar in the coming years. In 1951, they produced a full color set, which contains the rookie cards of both Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle, though the 1952 top set is considered Mantle's true rookie card by most collectors. In 1951, Topps entered the baseball card world with a whimper. Their debut set was designed to be played as a game, with each card simulating an action of a real baseball game. The set was a failure. The following year, Topps employees Cy Berger and Woody Gelman completely retooled the brand. Their design standardized the size of cards, which previously varied widely between sets. The 1952 Topps set immediately made waves within the card collecting community. Their design was iconic and became the industry standard. Topps solidified its dominance 4 years later when they bought out Bowman, establishing a stranglehold over the card industry which would last throughout the 1970s. During the 1980s, a legal battle successfully toppled the long-standing monopoly held by Topps, allowing Fleer and Donruss to enter the card market. However, the victory came with unintended consequences. The entry of new competitors flooded the market, leading to an overabundance of cards. This era is known as the junk wax era. Card companies overproduced their products. To this day, most cards from this era, even Hall of Famers, are of lower value than their contemporaries from other periods. Criticism extended beyond the oversaturation of the market to include the uninspired designs of cards from this era, often deemed generic and unappealing. In 1989, Upper Deck entered the scrum with their line of premium-priced packs. The Ken Griffey Jr. card from the set was marketed as rare, even though over 2 million were produced. Many collectors exited the hobby during this period due to disappointment over the devaluation of their collections. The decline of the junk wax era can be attributed to two pivotal factors: the 1994 Major League strike and the launch of eBay in the following year. These events triggered a seismic shift in the card collecting landscape, forcing companies to grapple with plummeting sales and decreased interest in baseball. Many companies went bankrupt. eBay provided an online format where people could buy and sell their old cards but didn't need to buy new ones from retailers. Card companies reduced their production in order to achieve a better equilibrium of supply and demand. In the modern era, card companies have introduced premium sets, real autograph cards, and game memorabilia cards. The online community breathed new life into the hobby as old collectors returned, and young fans were able to use the internet to buy cards, opening up a new avenue for collectors. 2006 marked an important year in baseball card collecting. Donruss lost its MLB license, while Fleer was sold to Upper Deck. Fast forward to 2022, and the hobby has entered yet another renaissance. Following the upheaval caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, card prices surged. Meanwhile, Topps lost their license with Major League Baseball and were acquired by Fanatics. It's safe to say that we are now in a new era of baseball card collecting, and who knows what will happen next.